Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Totally Schway podcast.
Yeah, it's our Batman Day special. Happy Batman Day, everybody. The best time of year.
Obviously, this is first Christmas. Obviously. So, the best holidays: Halloween,
Yeah.
Batman Day, Christmas, Halloween, Batman Day, Christmas. Are there any others?
No, there's no other holidays.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
don't count.
Turkey Day. But that's not... It's called Turkey Day because we just eat.
Mm-hmm. I am delighted today to have with me the very talented animator, Mr. Stephen Trumble, whose short Batman movie, Batman Broken Promise, just recently at time of recording, surpassed 1 million views on YouTube, which is an astonishing accomplishment. I wish one of my videos hit 1 million. I was really pleased when one did 100,000.
I think it's an astonishing coincidence that we're recording this on this day. I'm like, you picked the absolute best day to talk to me. I'm like grinning from ear to ear.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously a lot of people have watched your short film. But for those that are listening that may not have watched it, what the hell are you doing? Go watch it now.
I feel like our two channels might have some crossover though, because I think that's how I found you. I think I made a Batman fan film, and because of it, everyone was like, "This guy needs to hear what this guy has to say," And I think they're absolutely right. The algorithm worked. I think to bring us together.
Yeah, for once the algorithm was successful. It keeps trying to push me towards gambling stuff, and I'm not interested. I keep saying not interested in this, but
it's terrible
it
how much it tells you about what the universe perceives you, especially in this day of like AI, and people think, "Don't worry, we'll hand everything over to AI." And it's like, I'm an artist, and I work as an artist for a living. And throughout the lockdown, I kept getting this one advert with this Australian voice saying, "Do you want to learn how to make it professional-looking artwork?" And it was like this kind of like, and it was this kind of, and my girlfriend would just come in and tease me because it's like, "Oh, you need to take a course. Oh, it's a shame," and I just started to hate this man because he was basically, I heard him like 3 times a day. Every day for the entire pandemic while working as a professional artist. It's like, read the room, man. I've already qualified.
Can I say something?
No.
Granny, I got the job!
Oh, I hate that advert as well.
Oh God. Oh, yes. Yes, I know that one.
Yeah, I think what we've just discovered is perhaps we spend too much time on YouTube. So yeah, anyway, so get back on track. Sorry, we do this all the time, I'm sure.
No, it's probably my fault for I'm always jumping off into weird tangents and stuff. So go ahead, please.
No, you're the guest, so you can't blame you for poor behaviour. So back to your film. Basically, you wrote it, you did the animation, and you voiced one of the characters.
I technically voiced 2 of the characters.
Yes, yeah, I was going to say.
Okay. Steal all of the talent.
Yeah, and one of the things I thought that was so impressive about it is that you're very clearly a fan of different types of Batman media, because I could see loads of references just kind of woven into the DNA. The Burton movies, the animated series, even Joel Schumacher's Batman movies.
For sure.
And the Nolan stuff, and even Matt Reeves' recent movie.
I mean, I'm so happy you sent. I remember when we first got in touch, and you sent me an email response, and you listed all those things, and I was like, he gets it, he understands, like he sees me. Do you know what I mean? And it's like that's all completely true. I completely. I'm really glad that some people can pick up on some of the Joel Schumacher stuff, in it and things like that, because I used to say that like I'm the perfect age to like every Batman.
Yes.
I don't know if I feel like we probably fall within the same age range. I think where it's like when I was a kid, the '66 Batman was on TV in the middle of the day. So as a kid, that was where I would see Batman. And then when I was, I think I was living in America. My family lived in America for 2 years in California when I was 6, and I think I watched BTAS then, but kind of forgot it. And the only thing, you'll really appreciate this, the only thing I remembered from it was the image of Batman falling into Scarecrow's mouth in the middle of Dreams in Darkness, I believe, and it haunting my dreams. And so it's almost like there's this half-remembered nightmare was Batman falling into Scarecrow's mouth in a dream. And I think we had a Clayface toy that could fire one of those kind of maces. The spiky ball. Yeah. So I had that toy. I clearly loved it, but then at the same time, you then grow up a bit, and you're like a kind of just about to become like adolescent, teenager, or whatever, and then you got like the Burton movies, and your older sisters are watching them, and you're like, okay, this is cool, I like this, and it's your first image of him stood up on the roof, kind of thing, where it really burns it into your brain, and the bat signal and all that, and then you go to film school in your early 20s, and Nolan's there for you, and he's he's making all this this kind of grounded stuff, and it's like, oh, the gritty reboot, this is great, fantastic. But then the Joel Schumacher films, that was like less so Batman and Robin, because Batman and Robin was one of the first times I remember actually realizing that a movie was bad. And I don't mean that as in like I hate it, but I mean like when you're a kid and you see your first bad movie, and the fact that you're a kid doesn't negate the fact that it's bad.
I'll tell you a funny story about Batman and Robin. So I went to see it with my family, and I thought, I don't think I enjoyed that movie. I need to go see it again just to make sure. So I went to see it a second time with a friend, and I came out afterwards and went, oh my God, what was that?
What's wrong with me? What happened? Yeah, exactly. It had Batman in it.
I will defend Joel Schumacher to my dying breath, because he's a brilliant director. He made one of my favourite movies, Falling Down.
I love Falling Down. I'm right there with you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The issue with his Batman movies is he was given instructions to essentially make a Happy Meal commercial. And that's exactly what he delivered. He passed the assignment. It's just the assignment was garbage.
I have a weird reading on the Joel Schumacher films. I mean, firstly, I was gonna dovetail back and say that like Batman Forever is one of my all-time favorite Batman movies. Weirdly, because it's like it was just that was like my Batman movie. I found the Tim Burton ones a little too scary for me, a little too gothic. I was just a little too young for them, and you rewatch Returns and you're like, it's a masterpiece, but it's also kind of horny and creepy in a way that kids are kind of not prepared for.
Yeah, I used to watch those movies, particularly the first Burton movie. I used to watch it pretty much every day for about 3 or 4 years. I think I've said this story before, but maybe I haven't. But my brother and I used to be able to recite the entire script without any reference. So he'd like come up to me and say, I don't know, all right, American Express card. And I'd go, never leave home without it. And that's not a great example because that's an American commercial, so everyone would know that. But it wasn't played over here, so...
I mean, the more obscure, the better the quote, obviously. So, you go for it.
When he's watching that movie, I don't think he realizes it, but he mouths the words.
Sometimes.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
Yeah.
I love that.
But going back to the Schumacher... This is just a little silly thing I thought. As a person that really likes camp things, I love that movie for that, and that's all.
Well, I mean, you've actually kind of weirdly tied into exactly what I was going to say about it, because since I've been with my girlfriend for gone 4 years now, and we went through lockdown together. We actually moved in for lockdown, which kind of was amazing, weirdly. You hear so many stories about people's relationships falling apart in lockdown, but it was actually one of the most amazing things ever. But she loves RuPaul's Drag Race. And so now I'm like, I'm all over RuPaul's Drag Race. Yes. I know it. I love it. I've got favorite, queens, and I know all the terminology and stuff like this. And then I remember rewatching Batman Forever a couple of months ago and looking at Jim Carrey's Riddler, and I went, he's serving a look. It's a drag queen version of Batman. And here's the funny thing about that is that, like, as much as like people, back in the 90s, I'm sure that obviously there was all sorts of gay panic movies being made, and everything was so horribly, it's just like the threatened by LGBTQ communities and all this kind of stuff, and it's so pervasive in media at that time, and then you pair that with the fact that the Joel Schumacher films were thought of as bad. Oh god, like if only someone made a really cool Batman, but instead of this the camp thing, and then I kind of looked at it and I thought, there's actually, when you look at it completely dispassionately, it's no less legitimate than a Tim Burton gothic kooky version of Batman. Like Tim Burton's Batman isn't really like Batman. It's Tim Burton's Batman. The whole gothicness and his kind of Edward Scissorhands looking style. That's great. Everyone loves it, but it's no less legitimate than doing the full unencumbered drag queen version of Batman, which is what and I love that, and thank God that like society has like come around to the fact, hopefully for the most part, that's actually no bad thing. Two-Face is like if you got the Vivienne or some amazing drag queen to do their Two-Face, it would be just like that, and it's so cool. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the best thing ever if you dial yourself into it. If you come, with your heart open and ready to kind of go with it. And as a kid, I loved it. It was just so full of cool colors, and the characters are great. And it was where I got my love of Two-Face, even though the character of Two-Face is so different from like what people see as the established. He's kind of playing it too over the top. He doesn't really obey the coin. Like, everything's wrong. But the character of Two-Face is so good that just from that first scene where he flips the coin and does that amazing monologue where you can only see half of his face, and he's talking to the security guard on the floor, and it's just like, it's such a good scene. And it's like, how can you do everything wrong and yet it's still great? And it's because this, the character is so good, and the film knows what it is and does it really, really well. And you're right, Joel Schumacher's an amazing filmmaker. Visually, he's an amazing filmmaker. He kind of gravitates between doing these high camp movies and some of the kind of hardest, grittiest, kind of, he did fucking Phone Booth and Tigerland and all these other films, and Falling Down, which is an absolute blinder, absolutely brilliant film.
And to be honest, I do feel a little bit sorry for him, because when he first signed on to do the Batman movie, he wanted to do a gritty year one style Batman film, and that's how he got Tommy Lee Jones on board. He was like, yeah, we're going to do this great story, this great dark serious story. And then the executives just went, listen, McDonald's were very unhappy with pervy Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer's bondage outfit. We need to make McDonald's happy. And we got Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
Yeah, people are getting sick on their fillet o fish. They don't want to imagine it regurgitated out of Danny DeVito's mouth.
Can I just say this? I did have the complete set, I think, from McDonald's. I think at one, the plates and stuff that they had, they were like the clear ones. I had all of them. I think there were 3 or 4 of them.
We've actually got the glass cups from Batman Forever, so we've got the Riddler and the Two-Face one.
I mean, like sourced by yourselves, or did you like are they like collector's items now? How'd you get them?
eBay special.
Yeah, I got it on eBay. We make the joke that if anyone fancies coming over, we get out the special glasses, and there's the Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face.
That would be an amazingly special glass. I would love that.
Yeah.
So it's to go on a little off-road here. At the moment, I am doing this thing to please my inner child, just to make up for lost times. And that is one of those things, because I did not have the full set of the cups. But I will by the time I'm 40.
You're a completist.
Yes, I'm going to do it.
Okay, so I kind of forgot how we went on this big tangent. I was talking about the influences of Batman, wasn't I?
No, you were in the middle of describing all the different influences of on the film, I think, and I was trying to kind of explain, I guess, why. I'm sure you see this all the time in your comment section or just on the internet, which is that Star Wars, like any kind of fandom, but mostly I'd say Star Wars and Batman and DC in general, all these kind of things, it's all become so polarized, and it's no longer I like this version. It's I like this version, and the other version is the worst thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
Which I find so weird. It's such a kind of, you know, like, I think it's just people are so desperate to. I have this theory that people are very angry and they just don't know why in the world. I think and they go for the first thing that seems like, you know, someone will be like, oh, you know, this guy or this producer or this person running this studio is the reason why, you know, you're angry because this person did this and you love that, and then the other person did that and you hate that. And it's kind of, I feel so lucky to be someone who I could probably watch just about any Batman and enjoy it. You know, I mean, I have some I have some versions of Batman that I have problems with, you know, big time. You know, I definitely have one or two choice problems with several Batman, but I don't think I've ever not enjoyed the performance of the actor playing Batman. You know, I think every Batman has a different best. One of them has the best car, one of them has the best suit, one of them has the best symbol, one of them has the best voice. You know, one of them has the best ears. You know, I think it's one of the things where he's one of the most adaptable characters in all of fiction, which is crazy. You could change literally everything about him and he's still Batman. It's crazy. There's almost no other characters that you can do that with. He's so specific, and yet every single, like, there have been so many Bat logos, you know, just the one on his chest. Every single version is a different logo, and it's like they changed the logo but it's still Batman. How is that possible? That's crazy.
And everyone still recognizes it. You can point at the Robert Pattinson Batman logo, which is a bit more abstract and kind of sharp, and people go, oh yeah, that's Batman.
Exactly. He's got the pointy little Hershey's Kiss ears, you know, you know, which I think look amazing, but it's like so funny that it's like all you need to do is like, oh yeah, no, that's Batman. I understand. You know, it could be Batfleck's tiny little Frank Miller ears, or it could be, you know, the 1986 kind of really, really long ones, or the Arkham ones, and you know, and I think that it's one of the most fun things about the character is how changeable it is. It's like Doctor Who in a way, like you know, like trying to haggle over which one's the best, and you know, oh, I hate this one and I love this one. I just, you know, it seems like such a waste of good content, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
It is.
I mean, I do think that the animated series one is the best one, hands down. But
I'll give you that.
But I see the merits in all of the other ones, and I'm never going to go, oh, well, no, actually, no, I won't. I was going to say the only sort of Batman-related thing I didn't like was Jared Leto's Joker. I didn't like him at all. But I can kind of see some things in him that are okay-ish.
He's not for me. I mean, the Joker in general, I think, is overplayed. So you know, I don't think I've even seen the Joaquin Phoenix Joker. I've seen a few clips from it. You know, I just didn't want to watch it. I was just kind of. I mean, I can see that it's a good film, but it's almost like the Han Solo movie. It's like, take the most interesting character and do a backstory of him, and the whole reason the character was so loved was because he required no backstory. You know, the two characters in fiction that require the least backstory are Han Solo and the Joker, and they both have movies about like how they became the most interesting character you ever saw.
This is a very slight spoiler for it, but the movie has an ambiguous ending. So it potentially, it might not be his origin. It might just be a story he's telling his psychiatrist. So that kind of ties into like the comic book ones where the Joker says, you know, in Killing Joke, he says, you know, if I've got to have an origin story, I prefer it to be multiple choice. Or I think that was Killing Joke.
Yeah, no, I think that is Killing Joke. Yeah, and then obviously the Dark Knight riffed on it really well with the you want to know how I got these scars. I love that.
Yeah.
But the Joaquin Phoenix starring Joker movie is very bleak. I remember before I went to see it, I was worried that I would sympathise with him and therefore I'd be a psychopath. But no, he's utterly detestable in the whole film. The last sort of 10-15 minutes are wonderful cinema. But it's a troubling film.
It's going to be a musical next, apparently.
Yeah.
But going back to the actual Batman character, I think because he has these core values, and you can't deny that even if it's... Who's the worst actor ever? Keith Lemon. If
Keith Lemon's Batman.
All right. If he played Batman, again, like you were saying, I would find something I loved about Keith Lemon's Batman. I can't believe I'm saying that. But it's true. You know Batman just by the little symbol. But as soon as he starts to like save people, you're like, I love him.
Well, I remember seeing do you guys remember the trailer, the theatrical trailer for the first Scooby-Doo movie, where I think it was one of the first trailers one of the first trailers I ever saw on the internet, I think. But I think I also saw it in a cinema, and I remember in the cinema watching. It's this shot going through an old dreary mansion, like the Wayne Manor, and then it gets to the window and you see this lightning flash and you see the silhouette of Batman, and then it turns around and it's Scooby-Doo and he's like, who, me? Like that. And I remember as a kid just being the most disappointed I've ever been in my entire life, because I was just like, there's a new Batman movie, yes! I was so happy, and then it turned out to be Scooby-Doo. And I think every time because it was obviously playing in films all the time, I would see this trailer, and every time for a second I thought it was a new Batman movie, and I was just like, this blows. Hate you, Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, I don't like Scooby-Doo either. It was on TV way too much when I was a kid. And I just... I don't... I know that it's a program aimed for young children and it's supposed to entertain them, and it's like light... not even light horror, it's light spookiness.
Light horror.
Yes.
I'm not even gonna sugarcoat this.
But it was just...
I hate Scooby-Doo. I've seen every episode probably 13 times.
That's how much I hate it.
It doesn't sound like you hate it. Yeah. That almost reminds me of that moment when I watched all of the Gilmore Girls without realizing it. Like, which, you know, like, I don't hate the Gilmore Girls, but I remember watching it at home because I was working from home for most of my mid-20s. Living with my parents and feeling quite depressed, actually, but not really realizing it. And I would work from home, and not often like T4 would be on, and the Gilmore Girls would come on, and I'd be like, it's the Gilmore Girls, it's all right, I guess it's the Gilmore Girls, it's not really my thing, but whatever. But for some reason I'd started halfway through the Gilmore Girls, so it was like season 3 or something where I started watching it, and then because it's T4 it reloads, and so one day I was watching the Gilmore Girls and I was like, oh, I've seen this episode. Oh, no! And I realized that I had watched every single episode of the Gilmore Girls by accident. And I just was like, no! And it's so funny. It's almost like, you know, especially in the day of the internet now, where you all the people that hate Star Wars have watched every Star Wars because they have to do their YouTube channel saying how much they hate Star Wars. You know, like everyone's like addicted to the thing that they hate. It's like this horrible tragedy that we're all kind of embroiled in.
Yeah, it'd be weird. It'd be kind of like if I made a Scooby-Doo YouTube channel and spent the whole time going, it's that creepy old man and he's wearing a mask.
But that's what people do. That's what people do now. They love it. They can't get away. Like if Scooby-Doo was like, you know, big now, there would be a legion of YouTubers telling us how much they hate him.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Mary Mears, and welcome to Scooby-Doo. No.
Well, I think the world would be a better place if, to pat myself on the back here, but if they did what I'm doing, where I just talk about the things that I like.
I mean, that's why I really like your channel, actually, because you spread the love and you just talk about things you like. You just you'll kind of lovingly name drop Batman I've got Batman in my basement. You know, you won't do a whole episode about how, I'm sure you probably have done an episode about how awful it is, but it's kind of, have you? Yeah, I guess you.
I did. I just remembered. Yeah, I did do one, but I explained.
That even that one is lovingly done.
I explained why it wasn't as good as the other episodes, but that doesn't mean that it's terrible. I just said it's like being the world's shortest giant.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You're still taller than almost everybody else. It's just compared to your kin, you're the smallest one.
Yeah. I mean, I do share your love of the show, and I think that it probably is one of the best TV shows of all time, let alone animated show, or let alone based on a comic book character show. So I think you've got a friend in the room. I'm on your side, and I think I've probably watched Batman in my basement at least 3 times, like by choice. So I'm sure that I still qualify.
So I'm gonna go back to your film.
Oh, please, yes.
I loved it so much. It was beautifully done. It was in a style, just like Luke said. It was. You can definitely see that you were a fan of Batman, and not just a particular Batman. But I have a phobia of puppets and dummies. And Luke, before I watched it, I didn't know that it had the ventriloquist in it.
No one did. We kept it out of the trailers. We had like 2 tiny trailers that we released like a week before the film, and if you were eagle-eyed, you could see that Two-Face was probably going to be in it because there was a shot of the coin, but there was no. Scarface was the secret weapon.
When I saw it, it was great, beautiful. I loved the style, but man, that
Freaked you
panic
out.
attack. No, I really like. I like what you did with it. And you didn't freak me out too much.
Okay.
But I just need to tell you please, when you make another one, please no puppets.
I really shouldn't show you the gift that my brother got me for my birthday this year.
I mean, Mary, you could close your eyes.
I
and
might
show
have
me.
to go get it. I'm going to go get it.
Okay, so here's the gift. Oh my god, Mary, do not look. Oh my god.
Yes.
Is it an actual dummy?
It is a felt Scarface.
It's like a Muppet version of our Scarface from the movie. My brother had it made made bespoke by someone in New York. I don't know how he did it. But I had to unwrap that, and my girlfriend did actually scream out loud when it first came out of the box, and I started laughing like a maniac. But
that is wonderful. So I was going to say, I really liked your take on Scarface because, traditionally he's been, he's obviously Al Capone, and the animated series did that as well. The Batman kind of made him a bit more of sort of an 80s gangster. I think I vaguely recall him having like a V-neck shirt and like an earring. But yours looks like Nice Guy Eddie from Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
And I think the choice for that like really big comical nose was a very bold choice, but it works perfectly.
I'm gonna do a video about how I designed the characters. I've been meaning to do it for months. But I'll get round to it now that we're over a million. Now I feel like it's probably a good idea to start making more content. But I'm going to do a behind-the-scenes one. But he's actually, weirdly, the only reason he has a big nose is kind of because I based him on a real person. I forget his name, but he was in The Sopranos. And he has the hair exactly like that. Yeah. And and quite a prominent nose and those kind of jowly cheeks. And I thought... It's kind of weird. I was like, I don't know why no one's done like a Goodfellas / Sopranos style version of the Ventriloquist before. He's always been kind of mostly a kind of Al Capone kind of character, and I'm like, now we've moved along so far that there are now new gangster cliches that we can draw on, Yeah. So the idea of having him like that was, I just thought, a nice way of keeping it. And also the other reason is actually quite utilitarian on an animation level, which is that all the characters are stylized because it's an animation, which means I had to show that he wasn't just a badly drawn human. So I was like, what if I give him a really big note? I had to kind of cartoon him up a bit more so than the other characters, just so that you didn't think that it was just a little person, sat on somebody's knee, I was quite happy with how it came out. And he's the only character in the film that's keyframe animated, which is interesting, in After Effects. So all the other characters are frame animated, but I composite all the shots in After Effects, and because Scarface is inanimate, he's made out of two-dimensional inanimate pieces that then are keyframe animated. So you can literally see his jaw wiring open and shut, you know, and that's why he kind of has an uncanny quality that the other characters don't have. He kind of doesn't have a naturalistic way of speaking or moving because he's animated differently, which always kind of tickled me, I think. It was kind of also just because if you've got a character who's inanimate, it's going to be so annoying to draw every single frame. In fact, the creators of Batman the Animated Series they must have worked so hard to make him look like an inanimate object because they couldn't change his expression. Because he can't change his expression. They had to find a way to put personality into him, even though it's just his jaw going, you know what I mean? And like a little bit of eye movement and stuff. That's real skill to kind of it must be the hardest thing in the world for an animator to not move a character's face to show personality, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
By the way, please go watch this film. It is beautifully done. The voices are great.
Yeah, that was another thing. You got to play the ventriloquist and Scarface.
Yeah, that was great fun. And my girlfriend genuinely doesn't hear it at all. Whenever she watches it, whenever we've seen it, she's always been like, I keep forgetting that that's you, because it's obviously I'm this kind of little Lord Fauntleroy sounding kind of English guy.
Shush.
You know, this is what I sound like, and then suddenly I'm like, kind of even like Arnold, it doesn't sound anything like me at all. He's like Mr. Scarface, and he's just very kind of, you know, and I had to kind of get myself into this kind of scared mode. And some of the lines I even recorded. This is so stupid, but some of the lines, in order to get, my brother had to record some lines for it. He did the voice of Two-Face, which is interesting. He suggested, because he works in animation too, over in the States, and he said, we're going to record some scratch dialogue, but we're going to do it on our phone. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, the phone can't have a good enough microphone for that. He's like, no, what you do is you go into the downstairs toilet where there's no windows, you lock yourself in there, and you do the lines to your phone, but in that room. So I was pretending to be Arnold Wesker, going, please, Mr. Scarface, you know, in the middle of a dark toilet, you know, with no windows in my house, just kind of like having a panic attack on the loo while recording dialogue.
Now there's an image.
Very silly. And then it's the only thing more silly than that is me recording my brother, you know, with the door locked in the downstairs toilet, you know, in a kind of confined 6x6 space with him yelling Two-Face lines. It's kind of crazy.
No compromises.
Yeah.
Are you okay in there?
Yeah. Who does number 2 work for? You know, like.
That's kind of ruined the movie magic a little bit. Or actually, no, I think the opposite. It's made it even better.
Thank you.
I love the ins and outs of animation. I mean, I love movies. I'm a huge movie buff. I love classic movies, but animation, there's so much. You have the animation itself, you have the writing, you have the voices. There's so much that goes into this, you know, this short film in particular. And you can't do that in one day.
No, you really
It
can't.
takes a long time and a lot of talent.
I was just going to say as well that the kind of advent of technology has made it easier, more accessible for people. I've got a small collection of BTAS animation cells actually on that wall over there that no one can see. Hang on, let me see if you can see them. They'd probably be too reflective.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
I can see Clayface. I can see Catwoman. I know you're a big Clayface guy.
I'm a Two-Face guy. Clayface scares the crap out of me.
Well, you know, he haunts your dreams, doesn't he? I think, yeah. Mudslide. Mudslide is a great episode. It's one of the only episodes that actually ends with seemingly a death in the show.
Yes.
See, I mean, obviously he comes back, but you wouldn't know it at the time, would you? You know, he vanishes into nothing. While his lover screams after him like, please save him, and it's like, nope, he didn't get saved, I'm afraid.
By the time this podcast is released, I will have had a video about Mudslide go live. I'll tell you about it now, seeing as it's released. So it's called Did Batman Kill Clayface?
Wow.
Because there is a very common complaint from fans that Batman killed Clayface in that episode by disabling his treatment.
I find this fascinating because I've run into this problem so much in terms of writing Batman. And I don't say that as in like, oh, I'm a professional Batman writer, but I mean like whenever I think about it, I think there's a problem with Batman, which is that everybody fucking loves him, right? Everybody, he's the best fighter, you know. And I almost feel I could make a whole YouTube video about the weird thing that fans have about my favorite character is the best fighter, you know. So who's your favorite character? Oh, it's Batman. Why? You know, he's the best fighter. Or you know, even if your favorite character is Deathstroke, you think he's the best fighter. And it's this idea. Oh, Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker was never the best fighter. But then you come to Mandalorian season 2, and it's like, yeah, he's ripping up droids because he's the best fighter. I love Luke Skywalker. And you're like, I mean, yeah, I guess, sure, but like, he's not meant to be like this unstoppable force, like evil, like he's not, you know what I mean, he's Luke Skywalker. You know, he's a good Jedi. He's probably, I don't know if he would be able to fight Darth Maul, like maybe, I don't know, I mean, who knows. It's like, it's one of those things, but everyone has these opinions. And the thing about Batman is that just by nature of the fact that he's Batman, he kind of has to be perfect. But the problem with that is, how do you write a story about someone who's perfect? And so the problem I always run into whenever I'm trying to think of a Batman story is, if somebody dies on screen and Batman's there, it means Batman didn't save them, right? And does that mean I fucked up? You know, and I've literally been going round and round about this, you know, on a couple occasions. There's a moment in the film where it's a kind of a comedy moment and a little bit of a nod to I think the Curse of the Batwoman or whatever. I think it was the clip where the henchman sees Batman and he's got his sandwich and he drops all of his sandwich and Batman just like looks at him and then kind of decides to take him out, which was a moment that I did, but the original edit I did was different. In the original edit, the light turns on and Batman looks and sees the guy, and I realized, I thought, some fan is going to be like, Batman is a ninja, he would know if someone was coming in the room. So I had to change it. So you see Batman realize the guy's coming in the room, then the light turns on. So it's like Batman knew the guy was coming, but the guy coming into the room didn't know, you know? And it was just this, it was like a half-second change, but it was something that I was so paranoid, I was so scared to show Batman making a mistake. But then if you look at like the episode where Batman beat ass, the episode where he gets clobbered on the back of the head because he gets distracted by a cat, you know, and then ends up with no memory in the desert. Like, that's great. He, you know, because in order to tell a story, sometimes Batman's got to get clobbered over the back of a head. You know what I mean? And the problem is when you're dealing with fans, and I am a fan myself, but when you're dealing with fans kind of need to believe that their favorite character is the best, or they you know, they you know, I mean, like I got like the biggest criticism I think that my film has had, amongst a lot of incredibly lovely things said about it, is could Harvey Dent ever actually physically fight Batman? Do you know what I mean? Which happens at the end of the film.
So.
In BTAS, he definitely can, because he's a beast in BTAS.
Yes, he is. Yeah. He is. And if you read some of the more recent sort of New 52, post-New 52 era comics, Two-Face is a physical threat to Batman as well. They get into fistfights all the time.
Well, I mean, in the comics, Batman trained Harvey Dent, gave him hand-to-hand contact, and I think Deathstroke as well. I'd looked it up to cover my back, but I'm pretty sure that, like, he is a physical threat to Batman. And my favourite episode of Two-Face, or the one that I used to model the most of my film in terms of backstory. In fact, so when I got the actor Brian to play Bruce, I said, watch Second Chance. That's the episode. That's your homework. Your homework is to watch Second Chance, because that's the episode that shows what Harvey means to you and how you're always trying to save him. That ends with a physical fight between Bruce and Harvey, and Harvey's holding his own and Bruce is holding back. You know, he wants to save him, and that's kind of how we framed it. But that's the chief criticism we ever get is Batman is the best, so how could he lose a fight? And I'm like, well, also, how could you tell a story about a guy who can't lose a fight? You know, it's very difficult.
It's funny they say that, because he very clearly, it's not that Batman's lost the fight. It's that, as you said, Batman's holding back. Like, there's the bit where the Batmobile comes towards Two-Face, and Batman jumps, dives in, grabs a hold of him, rolls over the top of it.
A lot of that was very deliberate, all that stuff. I love the idea. I tried to come up with as many Batman doesn't kill moments in the film as possible, including he saves Arnold from a firing squad, and he saves Two-Face from his own Batmobile. It's like, I'm going to bring the Batmobile through the wall, everyone's going to get distracted, and I'm going to save Harvey before it hits him. But that's part of his plan. It's like no matter what happens, I have full control of what's going to happen because he's Batman and he has prep time. But it's funny when you talk about Mudslide. It's like, if someone dies and Batman's there, is it his fault? And I don't think it is, because I don't think he necessarily. If you look at that episode, I think it's Clayface that smashes the machine by accident, or is it that Batman does something, but then he's still trying to save him at the end, and it's only because he kind of dissolves, mid. It's one of those funny things where it's like, then you end up getting into the kind of Batfleck Snyderverse controversies and stuff, where it's like, and you've got people, out and out defending moments where Batman is quite pointedly allowing people to be murdered or murdering people, and some people argue that that's probably the most grown-up way of dealing with Batman. My personal feeling is that in my heart, I always need Batman to be beyond reproach when it comes to doing the right thing, and sometimes that can mean things get messy, but often means it's the harder thing to do. It's the harder thing to do to save someone than to not save someone. Do you know what I mean?
That's right, yeah.
And I think I really liked your dreams. Is it the dreams? No, Dark Victory. You did a video about it where you talked about the loss of hope and the overwhelming, the way different characters deal with despair. And you talked about Mr. Freeze, and you talked about the Clock King, and how all Batman villains turn to the dark side when things get bad, but Bruce turns to the light when things get bad, which is probably one of my only kind of problems with kind of the whole Batfleck thing, which is that you've basically, and in a way, the Nolan verse Batman at the beginning of the third movie, where it's like, really, Batman, when Batman gets depressed, he sits in the cave and kind of goes inside himself and kind of comes back out again. He doesn't turn into a villain, because that's what the villains do. It's a hard line to walk, but I think it's the more interesting one. I think it's by far a lot more interesting.
I actually have a few questions.
Please.
Okay, so my first one is, were you influenced by Tom McFarlane's Spawn?
I was not. I only heard about it after the film got released, because people were commenting saying it looks like Todd McFarlane's Spawn, and I was like, really? And I googled it and I looked it up on YouTube, and I was like, it does look like that.
So an interesting fact about that show is that most of the creative the artists involved all came over from BTAS. So Eric Radomski was the lead art. He's the guy that basically came up with the dark deco art style, painting on black paper. Kevin Altieri directed a couple of the episodes. He brought Brad Rader over as a storyboard artist. There were other people I can't think of off the top of my head, and I apologise to any of them if they are listening.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, and I need to sit down and watch some proper episodes. I think Spawn always passed me by as a character. I knew of his existence. I knew that Greg Capullo did it for a while and then did Batman, and I really love Greg Capullo's artwork. I think he's fantastic. I think weirdly our two the visual style of my film came down to kind of just how I draw, I guess, and also necessity, which is that I knew, and I actually gave this advice to someone recently who was thinking about doing a fan film, and said, what would your advice be? And I said, lean into your restrictions, which is that I know I can't make Into the Spider-Verse, even though I just can't. I'm one guy. It took me 2 years to make this film, and it was during lockdown, and I had a lot of time on my hands, and I was the only guy animating, and I was the only guy drawing, and the only guy doing backgrounds and all this kind of stuff, and it's just the only way I could lean into the limitations of it was be okay, we're going to draw it like it's a graphic novel, and it's going to be animated mostly on 2s, and we're going to lean into the scratchiness of it. It doesn't have to look perfect. And I think you mentioned this in one of your videos about BTAS, which is the difference between the earlier seasons and the later seasons, where more mistakes, you see the mistakes, in the first couple of seasons, but I love that because it's handmade.
Yeah.
It's not some AI thing, it's been lovingly, you can see the fingerprints on it,
Yes.
And I thought, if I'm making a film that one guy made and it's of Batman, I could either make a film that's trying to look like a blockbuster and fail, or I could make something that looks like I drew it and moves, so lean it and make that deliberate and make it so it's meant to look like that, and I think that's kind of ultimately how it ended up. And I really miss pure black shadows in animation nowadays, because of the advent of a lot of computer animation, and everything's so cinematic looking now, which means we can get all the different color theory and all this kind of stuff, and there's so many beautiful films out there that don't have pure black shadows. But to me, it's like, if you want it to look like a comic book, it has to have black black shadows under the eyes, under the cheekbones, and get those weird kind of triangular skull shadows under parts of the face. And I thought, and again, it's a way of saving yourself art time as well, because like half the shot can be completely in shadow, which I love. So no, I never watched it. But would you recommend Spawn to me?
First season definitely.
Yeah.
First season's amazing. Second season's pretty good. Third season, it's still good, but it seemed like a slightly different show. They toned down a lot of the violence and the sexual content, and it kind of ends on a cliffhanger that diverges a lot from the content of the comics, which kind of made me scratch my head a bit. But definitely watch the first season.
Okay, I'll check it out.
As a massive fan of that show, again, I'll say this, I've said it once before on the podcast, I probably shouldn't have been watching it at that age, but I loved it. The thing I loved about it was, I think you guys touched on this, it wasn't perfect. Mm-hmm. It was not perfect. And I don't think you couldn't have had a perfect animation with that storyline at all.
No, it's very gritty and gross.
The reason I ask this isn't just because I was reminded of it. I got a remnant of it. Is that?
I'll tell you there's one shot that really reminded me of the Spawn cartoon, and when I went, oh, I wonder if that was intentional. So that's the bit where you're in the alleyway with the dead homeless people that have taken the drug, and they've kind of got these really jagged teeth.
Yes.
That reminded me of Spawn, because a lot of it is set in alleyways with homeless people with jagged teeth and drug addiction.
But I will say this. I would watch your film over that now, because the animation was just it is so my style. I'm one of those people that I love the nitty gritty. Like you can show the little packets of drugs, you can show the teeth, but the story's got to match. And I think what you did and what Spawn did was that the animation and the storyline matched. Mm-hmm. You didn't just have voice actors in there with the cartoon already made, like, oh, hi, this is Barbie horseback riding too. Nothing against that. But you can tell that a lot of care went into this. And I'll probably watch it over and over again.
Just cover your eyes with Scarface.
Yeah, obviously.
Well, I mean, like, just the fact that you said that you got scared by it is something that I've never heard before as a filmmaker.
Yes.
Like, to actually be like, oh, I scared someone? That's huge. That's never happened to me before.
But it's
what
also
a compliment.
The realism of it. Even though it's an animated character, the way that you did Scarface, it's like, automatically it's like boom 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 boom, look away. Look at it, look away. Look at it, look away. It was just amazing.
Well, there was something that I really wanted to do with Scarface, which was, and weirdly, this is a little tidbit for you, because I started making the film as a test. I just wanted to teach myself how to frame animate using programs. During lockdown, it was like a little lockdown thing, and then Matt Reeves' Batman teaser came out. Do you remember when it came out right in the middle of, or the first year of lockdown? And I just got so excited by it that I started drawing Batmobiles and stuff, and then eventually became like, oh, let's do some animation. And so it just became Batman fighting some guys in the underground car park kind of hideout looking with the strip lights, and that basically just kept snowballing and snowballing, and I really should have written a script first. And I think if I ever did something like that again, I would have to write a script first, because it could have ended up being an hour long, and it would have been, I would never have finished it. But Scarface actually happened halfway through the process, where he wasn't originally going to be in it. I remember talking to my girlfriend's sister's partner, who is a huge Batman fan. And she said to me, she's always like, "Oh man, I love your Batman stuff." And it's like, "When's it coming out?" And you gotta promote it on all this. She's like a social media whiz. And we were around their house once, and I leaned over to Tonio and I said, "I think I'm gonna put Scarface in the movie, and I haven't told anyone yet, and it's gonna make the film twice as long." And Tonio was just like, okay, do it. Like, you know what I mean? And like, my girlfriend was going to be furious, because she was going to end up having to like suffer through me animating for a whole of the year. But I was like, but I came up with this idea, and it has to happen now. Once you come up with the idea, it's too good. You know what I mean? And the idea was like Two-Face and Scarface, both bipolar characters, and they're weirdly drawn to each other. You know what I mean? But I think the main thing that I really wanted to do with him as a character was to make him physically scary, in terms of like actually worrying that he could shoot someone, you know what I mean, which is something that you don't really get with him. In BTAS he's so well played, and you really get his paranoia. And I think it's the moment where he like slams the gun down on the table and yells when the henchwoman is looking at Arnold instead of him. And I think I wanted to try and basically do a scene that you could see in any gangster movie, which is like you've almost pissed off the guy who will shoot you. You know what I mean? It's the Joe Pesci moment, and it's like, because if you say, you're doing Al Capone or Jimmy Cagney, for BTAS, who's that now? It's everyone knows it's going to be Goodfellas. It's going to be Joe Pesci from Goodfellas. And so you want that energy of like, you genuinely don't know if he's just going to kill you immediately, and I really wanted to get that. So I'm glad that he registers well with people. And a lot of people, it turns out there's like so many Scarface fans just hiding in the woodwork who just jumped out and be like, yes, Scarface in the film, you know what I mean? Like, and that's reason enough to do it as well, because there's so many characters that get overused in Batman media. I loved kind of throwing in a character who doesn't get a lot of love. I think I'd seen him in one other fan film called Puppet Master, which was quite good. It was like a Nolan-verse fan film, and it had the Riddler and it had Scarface in, and I remember that being really good, and it had at least one idea that was so good that like I wished I could have stolen it, which was having Scarface, which was having a meeting between mobsters, and Arnold's there, but Scarface is a voice on a a phone in the middle of the room, and like so it's like he's being he's like phoned in, you know what I mean, like this mysterious other character. And I was like, that's a great idea. Oh wow. And I had to come up with something else, but it was just like, when you see like an idea and you're just like, that's really good, you know what I mean? But it did make me think like Scarface can be done. You can use Scarface quite well. And I think actually having the only real tragedy of having him in the film is that I could never do, apart from one very small moment, because I wanted to keep Two-Face's arrival kind of a twist, we never get like a scene of just Scarface and Two-Face like hanging out. You know what I mean? We never get like a scene of them just like being rogues together, actually making the deal with each other. Like that I would have loved to have like written or performed or animated that scene, but it's just like the way the plot has to unfold, you can't really get that, and my brother obviously plays Two-Face, so it was a lot of fun to bounce off him in that respect, and I think he's really great in the role. He's my twin brother as well, which so he understands a little thing about duality himself.
Are you identical twins?
Identical twins, yeah. He's wonderful. He's fantastic, and he's really good at like he basically understands the assignment perfectly. If you ask him to do something, and I knew it's because when you're making a fan film and you're like, okay, I'll get some people to play. I think the hardest thing was finding someone to do Batman, because Batman, it has to be good. You can't have a voice that isn't good to be Batman. Like I tried it myself for some of it, like for the first couple of moments in the film, I kind of did some scratch audio of Batman, which was okay, but it just wasn't. And it was because I realized, because it's maybe my Englishness, which is that I don't have unironic nobility. You know? You know what I mean? I can't convincingly show human decency in a way that, like, I was like, whoever plays Batman actually has to be like a morally, like a unironically decent American guy. And luckily, my brother has a friend who's an actor called Brian Vaughan, who he described to me as being like, he's basically like if Kylo Ren went and drank ale with you in a bar and said nice things to you. And I was like, that's kind of perfect. That's exactly what I want, you know.
Great.
So and I knew he could do it, and I was so lucky that he did, because it meant that we actually had like but my brother, I knew I could just say to him, I want you to play Harvey Dent and Two-Face, and he'd be like, okay, yeah, no, I know exactly what you need. And he like he watched the animated show as well, and he loved Batman Forever, so he was just like, okay. And I thought maybe I'd give him a bit of a, almost like a Barack Obama kind of when he's being Harvey. In fact, my brother even said but my brother said he was really clever. He said I'm not just playing Harvey Dent and Two-Face. He said I'm playing 3 roles. I'm playing Harvey Dent, Two-Face, and Harvey Dent the politician. And I was like, that's really interesting. Like, wow. So he's got the public persona of Harvey himself, and then Two-Face. And like, I told him to look at like American candidates. Like, he's kind of got a little bit of the Bernie Sanders policy, but but if you imagine Bernie Sanders' idealism wrapped up in like Beto O'Rourke's presentability. Do you know what I mean? Like, any kind of Democratic candidate that's like that the Democrats think can win is Harvey Dent, essentially. Someone who's like eloquent at speaking and wears a shirt well, and he can roll up his sleeves and looks like he can, looks like he could lift a bunch of kids, but also he's a snake. Don't trust him.
I fell for it.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, I like Spawn. I think you should do the next Spawn. That's how much I like your stuff.
Contact Todd McFarlane, see if he's interested.
Well, I mean, knowing him, he's probably got a toy of the Broken Promise Batman already ready to go. Going to start making money off me, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This is Todd McFarlane.
That's what he does now, isn't it? He just brings out toys. That's all I get from him on Instagram.
Stephen, I know about the toys. I am looking at.
Oh yeah, you can't see it just off frame. I've got a stack of really useful boxes. I don't know if you know what really useful boxes are. They're these really
84 liters.
They're these really sturdy boxes that can like stack on top of each other really high, because I've got it stacked
about
about
like
8
the plastic
feet high.
ones.
Yeah.
I was thinking like you don't want them to have rain damage, one day.
That's right. Yeah.
But they're filled with action figures. The DC Collectibles ones, the McFarlane ones, the Mondo ones.
Do you keep them in the boxes?
I do, yeah, I do.
I won't let them take them out.
I've got my original Kenner, I think it was Kenner. Original Kenner 1992 BTAS figures still in their boxes.
I think I have a BTAS figure that my friend gave away to me in uni because he knew I liked the show. And I think I have a Batman and a Joker little action, but they're have been out of the box for their entire life and probably lost somewhere. And I need to invest in getting some proper toys. I've never been like a collector kind of guy, but I think recently I invested in. I just got a Sean Murphy Batman White Knight poster for my wall, and that to me is a huge. That to me is huge. Like oh, you mean I'm gonna put something of mine on the wall? No, that seems like such a I have so much respect for the people who just surround themselves with things that they love. And it's so weird because I'm an artist. Like why don't I have Batman all over my wall? And it's like actually I think I'm shy about doing that. But I really should invest in getting I'd love to get like a toy BTAS Batmobile because it's my favorite Batmobile.
Yeah.
The long flatness of it, I think is just absolutely gorgeous. And I know everyone else is like, no, it's the Tumbler, or no, it's the 89, or even like the Matt Reeves. And I'm just like, no, it's got to be BTAS. It's got to be BTAS.
Agreed.
It kind of floats along the ground. It's like so low to the ground. It's like a bar of chocolate that fights crime. Like it's just, it's crazy.
I'm sure there was a bar of chocolate that had the silhouette of the Batmobile. I think it was like Hershey's, but it wasn't the Hershey's brand. Oh, It was disgusting, but it was awesome. I love the toys. I love them. But when we bought this place, this was supposed to be my room.
Right.
I'm just saying. But
That's
no,
so
no, no.
funny.
When we buy another place,
Yeah.
hopefully it will be a bit more,
Spacious.
well, obviously spacious, but a bit more stylish.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, when I moved into my girlfriend's house for lockdown, which now I live in, I animated in all of Broken Promise in her spare room, which she then later nicknamed the Doom Room because I spent so much time in it. And now she now works from home as well. She does she has two jobs. One of them is internet content creation for orchestral tools, and she now has taken over the Doom Room. I got kicked out, so it's like she made. Well, my suggestion to you, Mary, is that take it back. If it was meant to be yours, you just say, well, I think you need to work out of a shared office space so that you can be more social, and then kick him out on the street. That's what happened to me.
I lost a room, but I gained the rest of the apartment. So the bathroom's mine, my bedroom's mine, the living room's mine. Luke can have the kitchen and stuff. We both cook, but
I mean, I don't like to be like gender binary, but speaking as a straight man, you should have the bathroom. Like that's the one thing that I think you're the people who know what to do with that space.
he has two products other than like toothpaste, body wash, and stuff like that. I think like it was a hair pomade.
Oh yeah, for all the hair
Yeah.
I don't have.
And I can't remember, but also I guess one product.
Yeah, that I can't even use anymore because I
Yeah.
don't have enough hair.
Well,
So,
me neither, but
It's
you know.
mine. Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you some more questions.
Please, it's great.
Do you view the ventriloquist and Scarface as the same person?
Ooh, that's a great question. That is a fantastic question. I mean, I recently, just today, did I created a little meme that I'm going to put on Instagram later, and it's Arnold holding the ventriloquist, and on one side it says, 1 ticket to Oppenheimer, and the other side it says, 1 ticket to Barbie, please. You know, it's like...
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
You'll never see it, Mary. It's too scary.
I know.
yeah, exactly. But I think my personal feeling on it, the way I guess if you ask me as the person who played the character,
Yeah.
I feel like they are the same person. I think that the way that I decided to frame, I mean, I could tell you what I think of the character, just the character, and then the way I kind of did it, which was that if you ask me, you know, like, I don't believe that it's supernatural what Scarface is. I believe that it is Arnold, but I do believe that Arnold's a good person. Do you know what I mean? I think BTAS does that very well to actually show that Arnold is definitely a good person. You know, he's unironically a good person. If you get him up against the wall, Batman gets him up against the wall, and he's like, "Dude, I want to help you, man." Like, you know, you're gonna wake him up. You know, like it's like, you know, like he's you know, and I feel like Scarface is but I also believe that Scarface is an individual character as well. In that, I don't think that Scarface is just when Arnold gets mad. I think that he is he has his own gamut of emotions, you know, and he's smart, you know, like, you know, in the original comics and in my film, he was a drug dealer, you know, he's a master. His heists are masterful. So it's like, in a way, he's the best thing Arnold ever did. You know, he's like Arnold reaching his full potential is Scarface. You know what I mean? In a horrible way. You know, he's an overachiever, whereas Wesker is an underachiever. You know, he kind of is nobody. And the way I kind of decided to play it was kind of when I was looking at the themes of the story and trying to make it like Two-Face, the kind of political divide, the political spectrum. That's why there's so much of the blue and the red and all this kind of, you know, it's almost red pill, blue pill, liberals versus conservatives, Democrats versus Republicans, symbolism, but without trying to get too political about it, because I'm I'm pretty liberal myself. I just thought yeah, well, exactly. I mean, like I just thought, you know, it's funny. Actually, it's been really funny watching some people on the internet be like, I'm so glad that this Batman film isn't woke like all the rest of the stuff out there. And I'm like, actually, it kind of is, you know. Yeah. But it's more like I just wanted to show, the polarization. And how horrible it is to live in a world where you only have the extremes. There's nothing in between, you know. And that's the world with I thought if you were going to do a Two-Face story now, what would it be? And I thought he's a politician. Nobody ever talks about the fact that Harvey's a politician. Yeah. Anymore. Like he's always like a gangster. He's almost like a gun-toting Al Capone himself in most. Like you see him in the Arkham games. You know, yeah, he's in a courtroom or whatever, but he's not really acting like Harvey. And the one thing I find really fascinating about Two-Face is that he has the potential to be good 50% of the time, and in fiction he never is, which is weird. 50% of the time he should be Harvey. Like imagine if you had like a long-running series, and half of the time Two-Face is good because half of the time the coin, probability-wise. The coin comes up heads. So I wanted to kind of show that duality, and then I thought, how does Ventriloquist and Scarface fit into that? And what I thought was, Arnold just wants somebody to tell him what to do, and it used to be Scarface, and then someone more charismatic comes along, Harvey Dent, who he believes in, who can convince anyone of anything, because he is one of the best politicians. He makes people in Gotham think that there's hope. You know what I mean? That's how good Harvey Dent was. And the idea that, like, Arnold is this character who, in a way, I kind of riffed on it a bit earlier when I was talking about everyone wanting to hate the thing that isn't their favorite thing. And it's like, and I feel like if I look at, like, discourse especially in geeky stuff, in fandom, in comic book characters, everyone's so angry. And they don't know why. They have no idea why. They think they do, and they'll make 20 YouTube videos about why they're angry. But really, it's like actually they don't know why they're angry. It's just the reality of living in the world we live in at the moment. That there's mental health, there's inequality, there's anger, and I remember when I was very depressed. I suffer from depression, and I got treatment for it, and I went through that process in my late 20s, and I remember having a conversation with my brother, Two-Face, where we'd had a few too many drinks, and I got angry in the street, and I was like yelling in the street, just the average like young person. Oh, I hate the world, nothing good ever happens to me, borderline, incel shit, the kind of thing that like the type of thing that a lot of people, it's becoming an ever-present problem in our society, is people being angry. And my brother said, what do you want? Just tell me what you want. Like, what do you want? And I blurted out, like, I want someone to blame. That's what I said. I said, I just want someone whose fault it is. And David, my brother, God bless him, it was just like, there's nobody. There's nobody. There's nobody to blame. You can't even blame yourself. It's just, there will never be someone whose fault it is, ultimately.
That's right. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, and that was like a light bulb moment in my head, and where I just kind of mellowed out, and just kind of like, I think really one of the defining moments of my life, really. And it makes me happy that, like, 10 years later, my brother's playing Two-Face in my film, and you know what I mean, like, it's lovely. But I think that what I wanted to try and communicate with Arnold was, without, because we try not to be too overt with the points we're trying to make. It's not really a very political film, but the idea of just being like, he's a character who all he wants is for someone to tell him what to do, and that's why he betrays Scarface. It's not because he's getting emancipation from Scarface, because he's trading Scarface out for Two-Face. Yeah. The next biggest is just, but someone tell me what to do, and then Two-Face betrays him anyway. So it's like he's ultimately a very sad character, because he's just desperate to be free of choice. And that was kind of where the whole idea came of, like, Two-Face's motto being almost like this kind of thing of, like, freedom from choice as opposed to freedom of choice. This idea of like, actually, if you follow my coin, you never have to be angry ever again. You know, you never have to worry ever again because it's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. And just this idea of just like don't worry because I'll tell you what to do. You don't have to. And I think that's what people in the more extreme levels of society on both sides, liberal and conservative, they run to, okay, this is what it is, and I hate the other side, and blah blah blah. You know, and it's I think at the end of the day, I just wanted to kind of, well, you know, that's about as deep as it goes in terms of you know, obviously in the film he Arnold doesn't actually have that many lines, but he gets the line in the film where he says he's coming to set us free, to take all our choices away. You know, and I think that's something that everybody feels at some point in their life, which is, I just want you to take my choice away from me because it'll be easier for me. I won't blame myself, you know, I won't feel like it's not fair anymore, you know. And I think that was what I was going for. So in terms of, that was probably the longest winded answer to a direct question I've ever heard, but it was kind of like, yeah, if you ask me if you think they're two separate people or one person, I think Arnold Wesker and Scarface are one very sad person, is what I think.
That's the way that you described that was beautiful. Being someone that grew up with two people that had bipolar, they're very close to me, and someone who also suffers from your average mental health that we have as millennials.
Welcome.
I think the way that Two-Face, Scarface, and Arnold are, I believe that, you know, Harvey and Two-Face are one person, and I believe the Ventriloquist and Scarface are one person. But sometimes, don't we want to do that? We just want to separate that dark from the heart.
Yeah.
Because Arnold is the heart, is the total heart. Probably a really sweet guy. And then, as you said, and as you can see, Scarface is an asshole.
Yes. But it can be fun to be an asshole sometimes. It's so fun being an asshole if you feel righteous enough. It's giving yourself permission, isn't it? It's that feeling that everyone gets. Like whenever you see a good film or TV show where someone goes bad, the scenes after they go bad are always ridiculous fun. You know what I mean? It's black costume Spider-Man. You know what I mean? It's got a kind of perverse pleasure to it almost. I completely see what you mean. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but the way you did that, chef's kiss, because sometimes, you see the people that suffer from bipolar, and it is suffer. You see that them wanting to be two people sometimes because it hurts to be just one person, because it's, you know, you get sad sometimes, and then sometimes you're really angry, and then sometimes they combine, so you do feel like three different people in that situation. And the way that I think all of the ventriloquists out there, you know, I love all of them. I think they give us that little separation that sometimes we crave.
I think I remember having this weird little realization just before we finished the film, and kind of got really happy about it, which was, if you look at the credits of the film, the top three characters in the cast are dual roles. It's Batman, Bruce Wayne, Harvey Dent, Two-Face, Arnold Wesker, Scarface. And I'm like, that's so cool. We've got 6 main characters for the price of 3, you know, and it's kind of, how amazing is that? Like, it's a full cast, you know, it's almost 12 Angry Men, you know, up in here, you know, and I think it's kind of interesting that way. And like, even the way we handled like Batman, you know, I would say to Brian when he was doing his lines, I said, what I'll do is we'll record it multiple times, and I want you to do one version just as Bruce and one version as Batman. So even though you don't see Bruce in the film, he's always in the cowl. There are some lines where he's speaking, and that's what Kevin Conroy did so well. When he's talking to Harvey Dent as Batman, you can sometimes hear Bruce. When he's like, Harvey, you know, your fiance loves you, and he's like trying to implore to him, and you know he's being Bruce in that moment. I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that Bruce doesn't exist. You know, they talk, he is Batman, that's all he is. It's like, no, Bruce definitely does exist. You know, in that same way that, you know, you can't trivialize, bipolar or, something that was very sensitive too, because obviously these are two characters created back when like multiple personality was just a fun thing you could do in a TV show. And there's been a lot of really ham-fisted depictions of it. So in a way I wanted to, in fact, treating them like separate characters was a way thematically of getting around that, of just like, well, it doesn't matter if, it's not like trying to be a textbook accurate case of mental illness. It's just that's Scarface and that's Arnold and that's how they'll be played, but also trying to be respectful to it, but I think, exactly. I think it's one of those things where I did feel a sense of responsibility to try and, as someone who myself suffers from mental illness, not to try and make it like a gimmick, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And that, the way that you did this made me want to help them. It didn't, I know they're villains. We all know they're villains. We do.
Yeah.
They're assholes. I said it before, I'll say it again. But it made me want to help them. And I have to say, that's good on you for doing that, because usually I'm one of those people that like, you're the villain, I hate you. Great, but I hate you.
Yeah, sometimes it's very black and white, isn't it? But there are shades of grey. And sorry to cut you off there, Mary. Something that really struck me recently is I can't even remember which video I did, but somebody left a comment on there saying, actually, I suffer from this mental illness. And here's my experience. And then there were more people joining in and talking about it. Like, there were people that have actually got dissociative personality disorder. One person on there was actually like, the thing I don't like about a lot of the media is they try and treat it like the only way that you can live happily is if you kill the other alters.
Kill one of them, one of them has to die,
But this person was saying that, no, they're all a part of me.
Yeah.
And I like them. I like being this way. I like having all these friends. And you never see that in media. Oh, God, I'd never considered that before. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of, I think it's very much a writer's get out. It's a thing where, and it's been the same with sexual abuse in where they try and make it be, or just your average psycho characters. It's always they were mistreated as a child and that's why they mistreat others, and it's this kind of. And I remember there being an amazing interview with an artist on Kevin Smith's Fat Man on Batman podcast, who did a webcomic about suffering from abuse, and how he saw an episode of Law and Order or something, I think it was, where that happened. And the way he drew it in the comic was suddenly this ghostly hand of his hand raises a gun to his own head, and it's with him for like 5 more pages in the comic. And it's like, if you teach people that if something bad happened to you, that you're doomed to become evil yourself. It's great if you're a normal person, quote unquote, and you're watching a TV show. But if you're actually someone who suffers from mental illness or a tragic past, what is that saying to people? So in a way, it's like, I love that you say you wanted to save them. I would settle for don't hate them. If it just made you not hate them, that's a huge step. Like if you watch Two-Face in a movie or something, and you say to yourself, I want to save him. That's huge, because it should be a huge ask to even say, I don't hate him. He's a killer, he's this, he's that. And it's like, actually, the demonization of villains is something that Batman's almost unique in, I think, in that nearly every single character, apart from maybe 1 or 2 obvious ones, are usually very sympathetic, or at least Batman himself has an agenda of wanting to not just defeat them, but somehow not cure them, but neutralize them and bring them back.
Yeah, and that's the thing with a lot of Batman's villains, is that they represent a part of himself, and they are very deliberately created that way. So he looks at them and he recognizes himself in them. He feels like a certain element of kinship, and that's why he wants to help them. He's a very compassionate person. He's somebody that's had something horrible happen to him, and his response to it is, I need to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone ever again, which is, of course, is an impossible mission. There's no way you can stop it from happening ever again. But he's going to dedicate his whole life to doing it anyway.
Yeah, completely. And it's like, I remember, like when I animated the fight between him and Harvey at the end of the film, I was very mindful of the fact that it's like, in a way, this actually puts paid to some of that criticism about, who would win in the fight between. It's kind of like, it's not meant to be a fight as to who can win. I always framed it as it's a fight between brothers, and if you've ever had a brother, like I have, you know what it's like to have a fight with your brother. You know what I mean? Like, it's only happened like once or twice in our lives where like it's become that. Never as serious as in the film, but it's like, fighting your brother is not the same as fighting a villain. It's like, it's not very glamorous, and it's not very, and it's kind of sad and kind of desperate, and ultimately ends in tears, obviously. Always, So I think that's probably the best way to view it as an idea, is that, as you say, kinship. It's like Batman has kinship, and Harvey Dent is essentially his brother. He's the closest thing he ever had to a brother, in terms of this mission, at least, surrogate brother, so every time he fights Harvey, he's fighting his brother, and that's probably the best way of framing it. And that's why when, he gets him on top of the Batmobile, he's just like throwing fists at him, and Bruce is trying to bat him off with one arm, and it's just kind of like this kind of, it's not like you're watching The Raid or something, you know what I mean? It's like very kind of like, it's almost kind of cute watching them trying to kind of hit each other, and you're like, oh guys, just stop, man, and that's how I feel at the end of Second Chance. The fight between Harvey and Bruce is quite calm, it's just them, it's quite stand up Queensberry rules almost.
Yeah, and I don't think actually, I might be misremembering, but I don't think Batman ever actually hits him. It's more about just trying to suppress him and deflect the blows, calm him down, which is a very common thing with when he fights his villains, apart from the Joker. I think the Joker's the only one he ever actually really goes to town on. I
think my favourite in the animated series is at the end of The Man Who Killed Batman, when he lamps Rupert Thorne, and he goes, and that's for pulling a gun. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, yes! You know what I mean? Like, Like, you'll be like, if you threaten a kid, if you pull a gun, all these things, it's like that's what's actually, and then the episode with the alligator, the underwellers or whatever they're called, he's like, I'm sorely tempted, because you hurt kids, you bastard, you know what I mean? And it's like, I love those moments. In fact, I had this one line of Kevin Conroy's that I always used to as a criteria to judge any Batman performance, and then I told to Brian, who played Batman in my film, I was like, here's the test, you have to say this one line from Batman the Animated Series, and you have to say it. And that was why I thought Ben Affleck's actually a great Batman, because I could really hear it. And the same with all the people who play Batman have just about managed to nail this one kind of line reading almost, which is in The Cat and the Claw, when he smashes through the window of the mafia meeting and goes, tell me what you know about Red Claw. And they go, Red Claw? We ain't terrorists. And he goes, you're still scum. And that's the line. I was like, yes. You have to be able to hold a guy up by his lapels and say, you're still scum. And unless you can pull that off. And I think Michael Keaton has that in the moment where he's like, shut up, you're going to jail. That that's the moment, you know what I mean? And exactly. So it's like that's my criteria. You're always judged against that line in my head. And so I said to Brian, like, you just got to be able to just give me a bit of that, and then we'll be okay, What were the rest of your questions?
So we talked a lot about BTAS. Did you watch any of the other DC animated cartoons like Batman Beyond, Justice League?
Oh yeah. But after the fact. I can tell you the story of my journey with those shows.
Please do.
Because as I said, when I was a kid, I watched them, but I didn't really remember them. I was a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan when I was like 6 and 7, and I obviously did watch Batman because the opening title sequence was in my head with the score. That Danny Elfman score is only really in my head because of the opening titles of Batman the Animated Series, as opposed to the Burton films. I watch the Burton films, but when I think of that score, I think of the opening titles of Batman the Animated Series. So, and then of course Batman falling into Scarecrow's mouth. So then what happened was all this other stuff happened. I saw the Schumacher films, and I went to uni, and then in the middle of uni I started feeling I started getting a bit of kind of insomnia, and I think I was in HMV, which is an old sentence to say. I was studying HMV in the same way that I read all the DC comic books that I read. I never owned any growing up. I just went into Borders bookshop and read them in a chair and then put them back. So that's how I read Year One and all that kind of stuff. And then I owned Long Halloween years later, and The Killing Joke. So I was in HMV and I saw the DVD box set for season 1 of Batman the Animated Series, and I thought, fuck, I love that show. I haven't thought about that in years. So I bought it. And then I bought the other one as well, so I had both of the first 2 seasons. Weirdly, they didn't release the 3rd season in the UK or something, or we couldn't get it. Yeah. I ended up having to get it on Apple. But for about 2 years, I watched 3 episodes of Batman the Animated Series before bed to go to sleep. And this is interesting because you said you might want to talk about the art style of the show. And you mentioned the guy who did the backgrounds, which are drawn on black canvas to create the nighttime scenes. It's easier to paint white windows against a shadow than it is to waste all the black paint in the world drawing big old shadows. And because of that, and I say this with absolute love, this is one of my favorite TV shows, but it's a great show for falling asleep to. It's like, because it's so sleepy to look at. It's literally low light. It's dark. And it's got beautiful music, and it's like a warm glass of milk before bed. And I would watch, this is why I've got Batman in my basement 3 times, because I would basically just watch them all as they go chronologically over and over and over again. And it was my way of getting to sleep, and I would watch as many as it took for me to be like, okay, now I need to sleep. And Kevin Conroy's voice is like the best bedtime voice in the world. Do you know what I mean? It's
dreamy.
Just like, do you know what I mean? It's so dreamy, and it's just like, so in a way that it's a warm hug of a show. It just, and that was where my love for it came. And then only after that was I like, right, now I got to watch Justice League, and now I got to watch Batman Beyond, and now like I love them, and I only just recently actually really pushed myself to go watch the Superman animated series, which I really love as well. And I'm actually going to be on a podcast later this week. The Sudden Double Deep podcast. It's a fantastic... No, it's not actually... No, it's the same guys who do Sudden Double Deep. It's actually their spin-off show, which is about Clancy Brown. It's called Won't You Take Me to Clancy Brown, which is which is itself a spin-off of Greer's, which is a appreciation podcast of Judy Greer, which in itself a spin-off of Is Paul Dano Okay, which is which is one of the best. And I do the artwork for their I do the cover for their podcast every time, and they're absolutely hilarious guys. And I'm going to be a guest to talk about Clancy Brown. And I said to them, guys, I know you haven't booked it as like one of the things to talk about, but I want to talk about Lex Luthor because he's the best Lex. He just is the best Lex. You know what I mean? I agree with you that Michael Rosenbaum is the best Flash, but he's also the best Lex playing the with the Flash caught in his body.
That was a wonderful episode.
The only person who is just as good as Michael Rosenbaum at playing the Flash is Clancy Brown playing Michael Rosenbaum playing the Flash.
That's
when he
nice.
goes like, he's like, you didn't wash your hands. It's like, no, 'cause I'm evil. You know what I mean? It's just like the funniest. It sounds so much like him. They did like a kind of Travolta, Nicolas Cage face-off thing with each other. Like they did such a good job. I love those shows, and Batman Beyond I've basically just started rewatching them a lot. I haven't watched them to sleep to. I really should, because I think it might get me back into that kind of. It might be a nice nostalgia thing. But I think when I was animating, I was basically keeping a steady diet of beat ass, and then kind of trying to watch them almost in a kind of chronological order. You kind of go to the point where I don't watch epilogue, the episode that ends. I don't watch that until I've got to the end of Batman Beyond. So you watch all of Justice League, you skip epilogue, you then watch Batman Beyond, then you go back and do epilogue. If you do it at all. Some people, it's not their cup of tea. But it's like, the only thing I haven't watched is Static Shock, because I didn't know it existed, which is a real shame. I had no idea that it existed. I don't think it wasn't on my radar at all. And I'm like, and then I tried to find it, and I couldn't find it anywhere, like to stream or anything like that, or to buy.
No.
So I've got to check that out, because it's all the same group of people, and it sounds like an amazing story and character.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good show. It's definitely skewed younger, but that doesn't mean they don't have some difficult subjects. Like there's one episode where Virgil is staying around his friend Richie's house for the first time, and they've been friends their whole lives, and this is the first time he's ever stayed around their house, and he learns that his dad is actually a racist, and that's why he's never been over there.
Yeah.
And his dad's like, it's bad enough I've got to work with these people, then I find one of them in my home.
There you go. I mean, Justice League Unlimited especially is some of the best kind of, because it's funny I say this as someone like, you remember I said that like I wanted to have, like there are some people out there who would say, oh, there shouldn't be politics in comics. How dare you put woke stuff in politics or in comic books. And it's like, have you ever watched Justice League Unlimited? Have you ever watched Hawk and Dove? That's like an essay. It's like an amazing essay on the geopolitics of the world and the difference between liberals and conservatives and how they can kind of come together. And it's like everything about that show, like one of the reasons that Batman the Animated Series is so good is because it's the only kids show I've ever seen which has the word subpoena in it.
Yes.
Yeah. Twice in one sentence. Served you a subpoena once. It was a small subpoena. And it's a cock joke as well.
Yeah, it's like a joke, a double meaning joke, both of which aren't suitable for kids. Like, how cool is that?
If you think about it, like the whole plot of Feet of Clay is about industrial espionage.
Yeah, it is.
Which I had no idea what that was when I was 6 years old.
Exactly. 100% it's about that. And the episode Appointment in Crime Alley, Dagger is destroying a slum of people to profit off it. These are the things that I find interesting, and you can tell that the writers of these shows, they read their newspapers, man. Like they knew what was going on in the world, Every now and again you'd get that pure 90s or early noughties OJ joke. You get it like 3 times. They can't let it go. They just love it so much. But then, I love the episode. I only just really rediscovered it recently. Mean Seasons with Calendar Girl. That's like a TV satire. Such a good episode. And she's talk about like drag queen version of a character. The looks that she serves up in that episode, I'm like, we've got to bring her back. What a great character,
Sleigh boots the house down.
It's funny, actually. I think when people complain about politics in media, they're not actually complaining because it's political. Because everything is political. Absolutely everything is political. What they're complaining about is they don't like what it's saying, and they're having a bad reaction to it. Possibly, maybe because they're doing a little bit of self-reflection and feeling bad about themselves. And
I mean, it could also be because they haven't actually taken the time to kind of work out if it's political in a way that's actually to do with them. Sometimes just it being political is enough for it to somehow be bad. You know what I mean? Which is kind of funny. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, actually, there are quite a few shows and movies that have been made which have, a kind of message to them, which, some people will get really, really angry about. And then if you watch the thing, it's not actually that, didactic. You know what I mean? It just has the nerve to mention current events. Like what? Yes. So what? Like a gay person actually exists. That is like, and that's why. I mean, you look at Superman the Animated Series, putting in the police chief's girlfriend. Maggie Sawyer.
Toby is her name.
Exactly. And I think that I remember watching that only just recently and being like, that's her girlfriend or partner or wife, and then looking it up, and they had to keep it nebulous as to whether it was a family member or if it was. But I remember just being like, that's great. They knew like the people making that show wanted to be as, I guess I'm not going to use the word woke because people just get so upset about it, but like just right. Just like, what I mean? Like just there's gay people. There's non-white people. They can be in stories too. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's not a threat to you. Just don't worry about it,
Not everything is beige.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, exactly. And it's one of those things where I think that it's only a reaction. It's only like it's a knee-jerk reaction very often the time. It's either knee-jerk reaction or it's confirmation bias. It's either like an idea that they already have in their head and they're just looking for something to confirm it, you know. Oh, I knew they were going to say that. I knew this was what they were going to do. They have an agenda. You know. Like, I remember, like Doctor Who, you know, Russell T Davies is coming back to do Doctor Who, which is fantastic. You know, Russell T Davies has made some of the best Doctor Who there ever was, right? But then you hear the people who are like, finally, Russell T Davies is coming back, and it won't be so woke like the last series of Doctor Who. And I'm like, wait, did you ever watch Russell T Davies's Doctor Who?
Did you watch Torchwood? My God.
I know.
What's wrong? What do you mean? Like, I was there. I remember how weird people got about like the quote gay agenda in Russell T Davies's first few series of Doctor Who, and it's like, yeah, man, and it's some of the best telly ever. What is wrong with you? And then it's like now it's like he's this conquering hero returning to save us from wokeness, you know. I'm like, what are you on about?
The thing I find so baffling about... I'm getting on my soapbox a bit here, but the thing I find so baffling about it is how it's used as an insult.
Yeah, that's funny, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like, so wait a minute. So being aware of social injustice and wanting to try and make things better for all people is a bad thing.
Yeah, well, I play a little game. This is a game that you can play at home if anyone's listening, which is if somebody has like takes an issue with something in a TV show or a film. Let's say having a person of non-white skin playing a stormtrooper. I wonder who you think I'm talking about here, right? Trailer for The Force Awakens. What you need to do is, anytime someone says you can't have a black stormtrooper, you then insert the words afterwards, which is bad because.
Yes.
And then you just let it hang there and you go, okay, so what was the end of that sentence going to be? There can't be a black stormtrooper. There's a black stormtrooper in Star Wars, which is bad because don't like black people. You know what I mean? That's the only answer to that question. Yeah. Why is that a bad thing? There's nothing, like, you know what I mean? And you could insert it into just about anything that anyone will say, like, negatively. Like, you know, the new Barbie movie. Oh, the new Barbie movie is very pro women and wants all this stuff. You know, you get anything you level at it, and it's like, which is bad because.
Because you don't like women?
Well, yeah, or because that threatens you in some way. You know what I mean? Like, even if you don't agree with it, why does it threaten you so much? It's a Barbie movie, you know. It's for girls and women. Why and anyone else who happens to like that?
Exactly. Yeah. It's empowerment.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've kept up with the newest Superman cartoon. I've already forgotten what it's called.
Oh, My Adventures with Superman. Yeah, no, I don't know where it. I don't know. I never watch things when they first come out. I'm terrible. I'm such a contrarian.
Yeah, so it's on Max, and I use Mary's Max account to watch it.
Oh, nice.
And a VPN.
We're cutting that out.
Don't tell Warner Brothers. But I think it's a very good cartoon, but it's got a lot of criticism from people online for two things. So the first thing is that a lot of Superman's villains are tech-based in this show. So like Livewire's got a suit that gives her electricity powers.
So it's almost a Christopher Nolan version of, yeah.
Yeah, and they're acting like Superman never had tech villains like Metallo and Brainiac in Superman the Animated Series. And
anyone that was human, basically.
Everything that Luthor or even Intergang was up to was mostly either alien technology or some kind of R&D technology.
Yeah, and the other complaint that I really don't understand is people getting upset about race and gender swapping. So Jimmy Olsen's black in the show. Lois is ethnically ambiguous, possibly Asian.
Yeah. Well, it's done in a kind of anime style. So
Yeah. And Ron Troop is now a woman. Like, I didn't know there were so many Ron Troop fans.
Exactly. Yeah. Insert people who never heard of Ron Troop in their entire lives here. You know, yeah, exactly. This
is so disrespectful to the original creation.
Yeah.
Because.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like perfect example. Jeffrey Wright is one of the best Jim Gordons I've seen in film. I loved his performance as Jim Gordon. And this is someone who went through the Gary Oldman years, and I've never really had a problem with anyone playing Jim Gordon, and then just their dynamic in that film was pure Bat and Jim. There's that moment where there's a moment, but obviously because I started making my animation when the teaser came out, and then I finished my animation like a month after the movie came out. So I went, we were just about to finish it, and my girlfriend, Claire Wicks, who is also the person who did the score, I have to give her a shout out because she is so brilliant. She's absolutely great. And she was such a great partner and collaborator on the project, and just like one of the best champions of it, and just I'm so proud of her. She knew it was going to be a big deal, so we went on my birthday and my brother's birthday to go see the Batman, you know what I mean? And in a weird way, I'd put in so much of my time and effort and heart and soul into this film. If the film was bad, I was going to be very upset, because, you know, it's like, this was almost like the reason I did this was because of watching that teaser trailer and getting excited. And fortunately, I really did like it.
Yeah,
but there were two moments in the film where I actually welled up with tears. And one of them is obviously the bit at the end where he lights the flare, and you're like, yes, of course, that's what he does. He saves people. That's what he's supposed to do. Batman saves people. And I was like going, and she was like, are you okay? And I'm like, he saves people. That's what he does. That's what he's supposed to do. He doesn't kill people with crates. You know, he saves people. And then the other bit was just a weird random moment in the middle of the film, which is like almost a throwaway line where Batman says to Jim Gordon, like, I don't trust him, do you? And then Jim says, I don't trust it, I only trust you. And that line all made me cry, because I was like, he doesn't even know his name, and he's known him for 2 years, and he doesn't know his name, and he's the only one he trusts. And I was like, that's the relationship. The relationship, I don't even know who you are, but you're the only person I trust, you know. And I think it's such a great performance. But like, why would you get angry about that? Like, who cares? There's so many versions of, you know, like, I didn't do any race swapping in my film, and I'm sure there's one or two people who watched the film who probably thought, oh great, finally, you know, like everyone's looks like they're supposed to look or whatever, you know. And it's like, it wasn't like a choice. It was just like, you know, it wasn't a choice at all. I don't have any problem with it, you know. I think if I ever did a Nightwing, he would probably have slightly olive skin, I think, because there's a guy that I really follow on Instagram who always draws him with dark skin, because he's like, he's my Nightwing and I love him with dark skin, and I'm like, cool, I like your Nightwing, I think he's my Nightwing too, you know what I mean? Like, there's this feeling you have about certain characters that have this kind of energy where it's like, as long, and we've said it so many times before, as long as he's got the symbol on his chest and the ears and the car, like, he's Batman. Everyone knows he's Batman. How many Batmans do you need? We've got so many of them. You know, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. There's no problem with it at all. You know, and it's like, yeah, I think that it's one of those things, and you don't even realize how much of your favorite characters have probably already been through a couple of processes like that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, just the fact that Batman doesn't kill is a rewrite. It's a retcon, you know?
Yeah.
Everything that you love has been through a lot of change, you know? And I think that's a good thing. It's progress, you know? Things just naturally change. If they stayed the same, that would be not the normal way of life, you know? And
No, that's right.
So that was my soapbox moment, but...
The people that don't like progression, just shut up and stay in your little hole that you've dug yourself, because the people out here that are accepting people just for being who they are, that's who I want to surround myself with. And it's taken me a long time to be able to say that.
It's like the whole gender or race swapping thing, because one of the main reasons I think people get angry about it is because it kind of feels like a change from what was normal, quote unquote. And it's like, you do realize that all those people were still here that whole time, or during the glory years, the good old days, during the good old days of the 50s and 60s, or whatever the hell you think is the good old days. All those people were still here, you know, like, and they just weren't on TV. They weren't on TV and they weren't in movies, and you think that somehow including them is somehow denying history. You know, it's actually the other way around. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's such a strange thing. It's just kind of like, yeah, no, they were always here. As long as there's been humans, there have been, you know, there have been gay humans, there have been queer humans. You know, it's always been the case. It's never not been. Just read a book. You know, read a book. They're there. They probably wrote the book that you.
Yeah,
You know?
I was just thinking about that. Like, you wear shoes, right? Like, you person in the hole, you're wearing your shoes, right? Yeah. Where were they made? Oh, China? Great. They were made by someone that wasn't as beige as you. Great. They're great quality shoes, by the way. Love them. But why do you hate them now? Oh, it's because it wasn't made by a white person.
Which shoe manufacturer is ensuring everything was made by white people? Trying to work out who that product is. It's like, don't worry, all our shoes were only touched by white children. I'm afraid, in a sweatshop in Finchley somewhere.
There was a rodeo star. I'm from Oklahoma.
Oh, really? Oh,
things.
amazing.
Yeah. So there was a rodeo star in the 80s that said something. These are not my words. I'm not wearing those cowboy boots because they were made in Mexico. Well, so were my fajitas and tequila.
Yeah.
And honestly,
I hope he doesn't have an
loved it.
iPhone now or something.
Yeah,
Come on.
exactly. That is the thing. They're all doing this on their iPhone. I hate everything that isn't Republican. Donald Trump rocks on their iPhone or their Samsung.
People are they're just not aware of what's going on around them, and they don't like being reminded that they don't know what's going on and that things aren't the way they perceive them to be.
And I don't want to be like, you know, negative, like you know, I don't want to be someone who's like, you know, kind of like in the Two-Face Scarface way. I don't want to be outright hating people, but I feel like it's got to be so hard to not go with change. It's got to take so much. They must be exhausted. Like, it must be exhausting to not be open to change. You know what I mean? It's such I feel like it's this kind of almost this, like, you know, you think about 20, 30 years ago, say, okay, go back 20, 30 years, or 20, 30 years before that, or 20, 30 years before that. And then you think to yourself, was society more racist, more homophobic at that time, right? Yes, it always was, going back, yeah? And it's only getting better with time, right? And for you to think that all that change we've now finished with that, you know, say you're like, you know, like as it happens with the gender issue as well, with like, oh, feminism isn't needed anymore because we're equal now. And it's like, well, I think it would be pretty crazy if we'd fixed all that. If you look at the history of the world, it would be kind of crazy if 30 years from now it's not going to be better than it is today. And 30 years from then it's not going to be better than it is then. You know, to think that like, oh, it's okay, last week we fixed everything, so no one should have a problem. It feels really weird. It feels like it's like well, it's really. So you're saying that in your lifetime, society fixed everything like this week, and nothing could possibly be improved. You know, it's so weird. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm probably gonna get a bunch of people hating on my film now. It's a funny old thing.
When people discover that a creator of something they really like doesn't match their values, sometimes they're actually able to disassociate from the creator's value, and you know, maybe they'll do that with your film.
Well, I mean, I hope so. I mean, I feel like a lot of the people who've said nice things about my film, you could probably imagine they came from any walk of life, which feels good, you know. And it feels like the film, feels like I've managed to do a tightrope walk almost of managing to make a film that aligns with what I think morally and politically, but also kind of is accessible to as many people as possible. But one of the reasons, like you say, content creators, one of the reasons why I got in touch with you and was like, oh, if you guys, when I heard you were doing a podcast, I was like, oh, I want to go and I could talk about Batman for 2 hours. And I think it's also because I really got the sense from not just your podcast, but from your individual videos, Luke, that I knew you were someone who I felt was sensitive enough to try and navigate issues like mental health or inequality and violence and all this kind of stuff, and you came across as very responsible in that way, and I was like, oh well, that's good, and it's the type of person that I would want to have a chat with, which is nice. I feel like I've been lucky. Most of the people that I've had conversations with about the film have usually turned out to be real good eggs and real nice people, so I feel like I've been very lucky, because you know, you don't want to go on a podcast and then have them be like, so what do you think about it? And then it's like this torrent of bile. You know what I mean? That would have been quite heartbreaking. But no, it's really nice to talk to you guys about it.
You answered my last question, and that was going to be, who's your favorite Flash?
Oh,
so you've already answered that.
Well, that's the thing. I haven't watched a lot of Flash, to be honest. It's a very small pool for me. You know, like I never really watched the Grant Gustin one. You know, I never really did. You know, to me, Flash is always going to be Michael Rosenbaum because he's really the only Flash I know. I mean, and weirdly, he's kind of a problematic character. Not problematic, but he should be. You know what I mean? Like, he should be a problematic character. Like he does sexually harass every single person in his workplace. Yes. But it works. And I don't know why it works. I have no idea why it works. It shouldn't work, and I'll tell you why it works. Because there's one line in the first episode where he realizes, they think Batman's died, and he goes, the Bat's gone? Like that. And he just sounds like a little kid. And you're like, no, I get it now. He's not an asshole. You know what I mean? He's much more of an asshole in that one, his introductory episode where he had a different voice actor in the Superman animated series.
Yes.
Where all his sexual harassment stuff comes across super fucking creepy, and you hate all of it. Yeah. But then you give it to Rosenbaum to do, and suddenly you're like, nah, he's all right. I get him. You know, he's all right. He's all right. You can tell he'd die for any of his female Justice League people. Yeah. He's everyone's little brother. You know, he's, you know, the bat, the Bat's gone. You know, like, come on, man. How can you not love the guy when he's like, the Bat's gone? You know, he's a superhero, and he suddenly sounds like a 9-year-old just because he loves Batman so much, who never ever talks to him. He's just like too serious for him.
Barks at him. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. He's got a childish quality to him, so it's not like he's a sex pest. It's just that he's like, hey, you're pretty, can we hang out? And then they're just, no, Michael Rosenbaum, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, and then fortunately or unfortunately, because Justice League Unlimited is probably the thirstiest show ever made, there's always going to be somebody in the DCU who's a bit worse than him in that regard. They love to kind of cameo some like even more sex pesty character who like shows up and slaps Wonder Woman on the butt, and you're like, get this guy off my TV screen. You know what I mean? Get him out of here. I don't want him. Keep Flash. Get that guy out. I hate him.
Speaking of Wonder Woman, I loved your rendition of Wonder Woman on one of your shorts on your YouTube channel.
Oh, really? Oh, yes, yeah, on the Instagram.
Loved it.
Oh, is that the one where she's wearing all black? Kind of, it's black and silver.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about myself a lot in this.
No, I love this. I want to hear from
I'm native, and so is most of my family, and the way you drew Wonder Woman was just like, yes, like the jawline, the eyes, the lips. It was just like, yes, that could be my long lost sister or cousin. But it was beautiful.
I mean, Diana's an interesting character to think about, isn't she? Because like, she is very indistinct. You know, you talk about like colorblind casting. You could cast just about anybody as Wonder Woman, as long as they could perform it. Like, I remember watching the most recent. Who's the girlfriend of the guy who gets killed in the new West Side Story? She sings like the really not Maria, the person who's not Maria in West Side Story. In the new one, I saw her, and obviously she's, you know, from is it Puerto Rico or I think that's where the Puerto Ricans. It's Puerto Rico. And I remember looking at her and be like, she could be Wonder Woman. I'd buy that casting. She's fantastic. She's great. You know, I just think, I mean, I'm actually struggling to think of anybody, any type of human being who could not play Wonder Woman. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's just a beautiful, strong woman. That's all she is. As long as she's beautiful and strong and tough and, you know, and also kind, then you can play Wonder Woman. I don't think so. The second somebody casts someone who isn't white as Wonder Woman and people get upset, it's just going to be, I'm just going to roll my eyes, because it's like she's a character who, she comes from a fictional island from Greek myth, If anything, she should look vaguely Greek. You know, like it's she's so indistinct, you know, and every person draws her differently, and people draw her with more muscles or less muscles. And I think my Wonder Woman's probably midway between like a really muscly and a kind of not so much. But I think the strong jawline and a kind of almost an antiquated look to her. You know, she's somebody who I think she shouldn't just look like. It's so funny. Have you ever seen those things where it's like my personal casting choices to play blah blah blah, and it's always just whoever the person's attracted to that week, you know. You know what I mean? I always find that kind of funny. It's like whereas it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't just be the nearest available very attractive white woman who plays Wonder Woman. You know, Wonder Woman could be played by just about anybody in the entire world, in my opinion.
I want it to be Angela Bassett.
Oh my god, she'd be amazing as Wonder Woman.
I'm going to say this. If there's anything you need to know about me, other than the stuff I've already said, I love Angela Bassett. She could be any character. She could be Batman.
Angela Bassett's
she
Batman.
Could be Commissioner Gordon. But she is... I want her to be Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that also speaks... I think Wonder Woman could be any age. I think there was a long time whenever I thought of Wonder Woman, I thought of Monica Bellucci. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, in her 50s, you know, she could play Wonder Woman today, and it would be great casting. Do you know what I mean? Because she's ageless. She's, you know, the character is ageless. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's just a myth. She just exists. You know. I don't think, you know. You know, so it's just one of those things. You know, it's just it's one of those things. I think she is another very interesting character. I think I want to draw more stuff with her. You know what I mean? I think she's a good. I feel a bit of imposter syndrome. I don't think I could ever do like a full blown animation of her, because I feel like she's such a character in her own right. I feel like I would have to do a lot of research and read comic books cover to cover and stuff. I'd love to do an animation where there was like a cameo from Wonder Woman or something.
If there's anybody that can do it, I think it's you.
Oh, that's very sweet. It would basically just be like she shows up and decimates a whole room of people. That's basically really what it is. But then says something really nice and leaves.
Yeah, your Wonder Woman reminds me a little bit of the way that Frank Miller drew her in what was it called, The Dark Knight Strikes.
That's the one where the weird one where doesn't she have sex with Superman and they like break the planet or something crazy like that?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and they have a daughter and a son later on. But Frank Miller's art has got a lot more kind of expressionistic and abstract in recent decades, and that was like the first big book that he put out where he just went completely over the top with like neon colors and really strong shadows, and I remember people being quite mad about it, but I find it quite appealing to the eye. I'm drawn to it. It was really, really very interesting, and I like things that are different. You know, there's no point in doing everything exactly the same way. As much as I love Beat-Ass, if they just kept doing Beat-Ass for the rest of time, I think I would probably get bored of it eventually. The fact that it's got a very clear, definitive beginning, middle, and end is a strong selling point for me.
Also, it's the only Batman media, and I kind of say this quite confidently, I think, the only Batman media that has given a believable reason that Bruce Wayne would stop fighting crime. In the beginning of Batman Beyond. It's the only one I've seen that actually like is convincing. All the other ones I'm like, no, he's Batman, he'd still be doing it, you know? And I think that they did that so well, and you're right, it does create a beginning, middle, and end. And I think that, especially considering I made like a fan film, it's very easy, because I'm such a fan of Beat-Ass, I'm not good at drawing stuff in Bruce Timm's style. I couldn't do it. Like, some people out there are so good at Bruce Timm. They can do the shark ears, you know, his ears look like a shark, you know. That's not what my Batman looks like. And my Batman wasn't something that I spent a lot of time trying to design. It was just every time I draw Batman, he looks like that. It's like I have a Batman in my head, and that's how he looks, you know. So it's kind of this weird thing of like, I wanted to almost... I think a lot about James Cameron when he made Aliens. Arguably the greatest sequel ever made, you know, basically. Like, he managed to make a film of a beloved classic and turned it into another classic in almost a different genre. You get like a science fiction horror and turn it into a science fiction action film. And in the commentary, he said that he loved Ridley Scott's film so much that he couldn't bring himself to copy it. You know, he was like, out of respect, I'm not going to copy it. And I think that is something that people, especially in all this day of nostalgia and fan service, that is backfiring horribly. You know, God bless them, they're trying, but it just keeps backfiring. Fans don't know what they want, really. You know, I don't think they do. I'm a fan. You know, nobody knows what they want. They just know what they like when it comes. You know, and it's like, I think the idea is to me that, you know, the best way to pay homage to something is to wear your influences on your sleeve, but then have the respect to make your own thing, or try and make it, you know. And so I have, you know, Two-Face's in the film, but he doesn't look like he doesn't have the black and white suit, which is probably one of the best, probably the best design of Two-Face.
Yes.
You can't improve the BTAS Two-Face visually. You cannot do it. It's such a good design. He doesn't, you know, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. So I had to come up with my own thing, you know. And that pushes you to come up with new ideas, and like the Scarface with the different costume and the, you know, the big nose. It's like, you got to do it somehow, you know. And I think same with the cowl and the thing. And, you know, it's been nice that people have said nice things about it, you know. But if it's not your favorite Batman, that's fine. There's so much Batman. You can like something else. It's absolutely fine, you know. But it's just the one thing that would have really broken my heart would be if I made a not very good BTAS impression, you know. It wouldn't have worked. You know? But you can see there's references to BTAS, but it's never the exact thing, you know.
Well, I'll tell you, there were a couple of shots in there where I could very clearly see references to specific shots, and in particular there's one shot. Obviously, there's the one at the end where he stands on the building with the lightning strike. That's the obvious one.
And I'm not even the first fan film to have done that, you know.
No, of course. I think everybody does, right? Because it's one of the most iconic Batman images. But there was one shot where you have like an extreme close-up on Batman's face, and he looks like this. And the kind of dimple in his chin, and obviously the white eyes. I can't remember which episode it was, but it was an actual like painting, a matte painting of Batman that they used in the episode. And I went, that shot is from that episode, whatever that episode is. I think it's featured in that Batman animated book you flashed up earlier on one of the pages.
Yeah, I think I was flipping through it last night, and I think you're right. And like you know, like, I mean, just the fact that he has the white eyes, like that's the biggest BTAS thing in the whole film, is just the shape of his eyes. I think, you know, because it's so unique, you know, and it just does the job so perfectly, you know.
And I find it fascinating how these things just kind of seep out from our subconscious. So it wasn't a case, and I'm sorry, I wasn't meaning to suggest that it was a case of you like getting Bruce Timm's painting going, right, I'm just going to copy this exactly.
No, but I'm fascinated when you pointed it out. I'm like, I bet it is. I bet it is something, you know. Like I was very close to almost doing a opening credit sequence eye narrow. You know, like I love that shot because he's painted there as well. It's just the eyes that are animated, and I think about it all the time. And there's like one little dust mote that's gotten caught in the camera, you know, and it's always there, so I always recognize it. I'm always like, I love that shot with that little dust mote that they didn't have time to fix, you know. They didn't check the gate on that one, you know, but it makes it look so handmade and beautiful. I
it's
think
a big dusty show.
Yeah, I love the dustiness. I absolutely love the dustiness, and I tried to add some of that in. Like I put grain on the film deliberately. I kind of wanted to go. I tried to use like the Marvel Daredevil Netflix show almost as a visual, because those Netflix shows are all shot on like, you know, HD cameras or whatever, you know, 4K cameras, but that show deliberately grained up their footage to give it that gritty quality, and I love that. I'm like, well, that's what I want to do with Batman. I want to make sure that it looks dirty.
So any final thoughts, Mary? Anything else you want to cover before we...
I just want to thank you for coming on our podcast. And I want to thank you for putting out one of my favorite things on the internet now, that I will go back and watch over and over. Because in a strange way, it brings me a little bit of comfort, which is weird, even though it scares me. And I'm glad to meet another person in this world that shares an interest in Batman.
Yeah, there's so few of us. There's so few of us out there.
Yeah, at least 3.
Well, Well, that's incredibly kind of you, and it's always lovely to hear when someone likes something that you've done. And it's the first project that I finished in like at least 10, 20 years, and it was it felt such a huge emotional moment. I like, it's one of those things where I'm a self-deprecating English dude, but I'm able to say that I'm proud of it, which is saying something.
Great.
You know what I mean? Just because I finished it, I finished it and I liked it, and when I hear that other people liked it, it makes me really happy. So that's really great, and especially from people who I definitely feel like I share. I feel like I share your feelings about the character. And that's so lovely to meet like-minded people, because obviously everyone has an opinion about Batman. Everyone thinks he should be more this or he should be more that. He should be meaner. He should be angrier. He should be a bad dad. Any number of things he should be. And I always like when people, if someone looks at something that I've done and thinks that I've reflected the character well, then I think that's a huge compliment. And I'd like to thank anyone who's listening to this who watched the movie and liked it. It means so much to me, and to Claire, who did the wonderful score for it, and she's so good. It's one of the, like, imagine trying to write a Batman score that isn't Danny Elfman or Junkie XL or Hans Zimmer. You know what I mean? Or Shirley Walker. Shirley Walker's stuff is unbelievable. And so the idea that, someone can walk in, and she wasn't even a huge Batman fan. All she knew about Batman was that me and her sister's partner are obsessed with Batman, and she's like, she and her sister have been like, why does this keep happening to us? Where did we find these people? And I think it's just a curse, but now she's like dyed in the cloth, now she's like, because she's been through this process, she has like opinions now.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that's great, so a huge shout out to her and to everyone else. But thank you so much for having me on and talking to me about it. It's fantastic.
No, it's been great.
Bringing couples together year after year.
Since 1939.
Now I'm just expecting Batman hiding behind a bush and then giving me a thumbs up from the shadows. That's what I'm imagining now.
So do you have anything else you'd like to plug? Or maybe your social media if people want to chat with you?
Yeah, well, I guess, obviously the film is up on YouTube. That's Stephen Trumble Animation. You can see Stephen Trumble Animation also on Instagram, where I haven't done a lot lately because I've been working on I'm working full time at the moment on something, and it means that I just haven't had any time. But I'd like to draw pictures of Wonder Woman and other characters and all sorts of things, and kind of try and do my versions of things, which I just love adapting characters, and the DC characters are some of the most adaptable, which is really special, that you can keep what's true about them while changing everything, which is almost unprecedented in comic books. You can't really do a Christopher Nolan Spider-Man. It wouldn't work. You couldn't do a Matt Reeves Spider-Man. It doesn't work. No. But Batman and his rogues gallery you could do in any way, including the Joel Schumacher way. So and then on Twitter I'm just Stephen Trumble. I'm going to be on Won't You Take Me to Clancy Brown at some point. I don't know if it'll air at the same time as this, but other than that, nothing much to plug other than just to say thanks and to plug your channel because it's really good, and you know more about BTAS than I do.
I don't know how to respond to compliments. I'm really bad at it. So I just tried to smile and I thought, no, you're just flashing your teeth and
He's
looking like a
allergic
weirdo.
to it.
You just gurned. You gurned in my direction. Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to. I tried to smile.
I tried to smile is probably the best compliment a British person can give anybody.
Yes.
The last thing I want to say to you is congratulations on 1 million views.
Yay!
Yeah,
That's
it's amazing.
Oh my god. Yeah. I gotta get some champagne or something for me and Claire to celebrate with. That would be lovely. Yeah. Thank you.
I want to end this podcast on a personal note and say if you are struggling in any way, and that includes mentally, physically, emotionally, there are people out there you can talk to. I'm going to put a few things in the description box from the UK that I've had help with, that you could find help, like talking to somebody, because mental health, physical ailments, it should not be taboo.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
I think the more we talk about it, that we're comfortable enough talking about it, about our own mental health, the better, because it's not taboo. There's nothing wrong with you if you're struggling. The only problem you will have is if you do not think the best Flash. I'm joking. The only problem you have is just not reaching out and getting help. Yeah. And if you need someone to talk to, my DMs are always open. I might not get to you that same day. I probably will at 2:00 in the morning. But I'm always there. If you don't want to talk, I can't give you medical advice, but just talk to somebody. Even if that's not your family, not your friend, there are professionals out there, and you don't always have to pay for it. There are ways and people to speak to on this wonderful thing called the internet. Just please be kind to yourself so you can be kind to the rest of the world. We need to care about ourselves just as much as we care about Batman.
Well, because Batman cares about you, so...
Exactly.
Batman, how could Batman be wrong? So,
Exactly.
There you
Always
go.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
You heard it here, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for listening to my lovely nasally voice, and thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah.
Thank you, Gilgamesh. You did a great job.
He's actually behind you.
Oh, hey.
The other thing I'd really like to plug is my partner Claire Wicks, and you can find her amazing work on Instagram, which is Claire Writes Music, and she did the score for Batman Broken Promise, and absolutely moved mountains to make something worthy of a blockbuster, and she's absolutely incredible, and she's a incredibly talented composer, so go and send her some love as well. That would be wonderful. And
Thank you, Claire.
yes, thank you. And well, thank you especially for letting me take over your spare room and turn it into a Doom room for a year and a half. And also for being a partner who realized I was starting to make a Batman film that at that point didn't have an ending in sight, and decided to just let me keep doing it, and then actually helped me make it. Like that's love, man. You know?
It's love.
And we need more couples like that. Thank you so
Support
much,
each other.
Claire, for being so appreciative of all of his talent. And thank you for yours. We love you.
All right, cool. Now you can cut.
All right, let's cut that.
Had to throw that out. Had to throw that in.